My name's Stuart Desson. I'm the CEO and founder of Lumina Learning. I'd like to share with you a validation study. 230 people, they completed a Big 5 version of the Lumina Spark Psychometric, and this was then correlated with feedback from a feedback group assessing their Grade 8 competencies. So it's an interesting take, because we're going to slice the data into the underlying, the everyday and the overextended. So you can see on the vertical axis here we've got the Big 5 as measured through Lumina Spark, all 5 of the factors, and on the horizontal we have Grade 8 competencies. This is the model originally developed by Dr. Kurz and Professor Bartram. This model identified, it's been researched over 20 years, it identified 8 different competencies that are relevant in the workplace. People gave feedback on these competencies to assess an individual, and that was correlated with the individual's self-assessment based on the Big 5. And here we have a correlation matrix which, with the statistically significant correlations highlighted in bold. Now the data on the screen now is all underlying data. So we looked at how do people's instinctive preferences, their dispositional traits, how do they correlate with their performance at work in the eyes of the feedback group. And the interesting thing to note here is there weren't a huge number of significant correlations. In fact, interestingly, introversion was coming out as correlating more significantly than extroversion with a couple of the Grade 8 competencies. And the green and the red being non-judgmental and being skeptical of others as a polarity, they weren't having a huge statistically significant impact on performance. When we had a look at the bottom of the table, the 5th factor, typically in other models, neuroticism is seen as a bad thing, but we didn't find any significant correlations between what other models would call neuroticism. We're calling it the risk reactor, and performance. Or put another way, even if people are feeling underneath somewhat anxious, somewhat self-critical, if they're able to manage that, it doesn't seem to be impacting their performance. In terms of being emotionally stable, or we call it a reward reactor, indeed being stress tolerant was a good thing, as indeed was having high levels of inner confidence. That was correlating with at least 3 of the Grade 8. We're now going to have a look at the everyday persona. Now here we see more statistically significant correlations coming in. Firstly, we find that with the green and the red, what is typically called outcome focused, we have, if you're good at understanding others, yet you can also be autonomous, that correlates positively with a number of the Grade 8 competencies. We can see introversion again helping with our ability to analyse situations. And now being upbeat in our reward reactors has come in as something that helps us across the board, as does indeed our discipline driven and our achievement orientation, correlating there with a couple of the Grade 8. Let's have a look now at the overextended. This is where it gets really fascinating. Here we might expect all the correlations to become negative. That is, the more I overextend, the more that might impact my performance. As a general rule, that's true, but there are some notable exceptions. Have a look at the bottom row there with ignoring stress. So if I ignore stress, if I push it down, pretend it's not happening and keep going, it might not be good for me, but it turns out that staff and peers will give you good feedback that you're coping with it and it works for them. I guess they don't know the inside story. We can also see what I call the lethal cocktail to kill engagement and kill performance. Have a look at the row on volatile. There's some nice high negative correlations there. If we're volatile, if we get very fiery and angry with people, that impacts the feedback that we're going to get. Again, look at the row on critical. If I'm volatile and critical with other people, that will impact my performance. And if I'm also excitable, well, that will just about finish off my performance. So these are the key qualities in the Big 5 that have the biggest negative effect on performance if we overplay them. I hope you found that breakdown across the 3 personas for the whole of the Big 5 interesting, and I hope you can see how it gives some validity to the structure of the 3 personas and the Lumina Spark model. Thank you.